walks into a residence, and in his efforts, somebody dies. What's the position of the law about that situation?
Okay, that's a capital offense.
It's a capital offense.
Yes. So straight away, he will. The law will require him to also be imprisoned for a term of years.
For a term of years,
yes.
You see. So what I'm trying to say is that the position of the law is already established about these crimes. It is not when you commit a crime that the law will be formulated to accommodate it. The law already has penalties. Okay, that's what I just wanted you to confirm.
Thank you.
Now, so what we are seeing here is that God told Adam that if he eats of that fruit, that the judgment about that level of departure is already captured in the justice system of heaven. So when Jesus came, the major assignment of Jesus was to create an escape route for humankind, because humankind is already on the bad side of the law. And in order for Jesus to make a way for humankind, he had to receive that judgment. He had to submit to that judgment. So the ultimate purpose of Jesus in his ministry was to offer himself in order to satisfy the claims of divine justice, but the principle of substitution, so that you and me can have a way to experience life. So Jesus took our place in judgment so that we can take his place in life. That's the story of the gospel. Now, so all of our priesthood is based on the foundation of what Jesus did. So what Jesus did is what is referred to, or what is seen as, the brazen altar in the holy place. Are you clear? Are you there? So the sacrifice of Jesus is the biggest altar that you can ever find. And our priesthood is based on interacting with that sacrifice and applying it in various fashions, in various forms. Because in Jesus, sacrifice passes to become a living sacrifice. Sacrifices previously were external things that were given. But the priesthood that Jesus came to manifest, which is the priesthood after the order of Melchizedek, it is human beings that become the sacrifice. You get that? Oh, you didn't get it? Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he said, sacrifices, offerings, thou wouldest not. It means that the sacrifices that were offered in the Old Testament did not really have the ability to undo the things for which they were offered. So when Jesus came, he says, sacrifices, burnt offerings, that you would not, but a body you have prepared for me. The reason why you have given me a body is so that I can become the ultimate sacrifice. Can you see that the sacrifice now has moved from animals and it has moved to a man? You get that? A body. That was the reason why Jesus was assigned a body, so that he can pay the ultimate price, the ultimate type of sacrifice that will be pleasing in the sight of God, that will satisfy the claims of divine justice. Go on. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin, thou hast had no pleasure. Go on. Then said I, lo, I am come in the volume of the book, as it is written of me, to do thy will, O God. Yeah? Above, when he said sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin, thou wouldest not, neither hast pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. It means the law did not satisfy God. It only appeased God for a time. And that is why it was repeated, because it was just a means of appeasement. It was not a means of satisfaction. So the claims of divine justice were not satisfied under the law. If you come and bring a bull and sacrifice, it might cover your offense for a time. But the implication of that sacrifice and the vocabulary of the blood that is shed will begin to wane in the realm of the spirit until it fully evaporates after a time. So you will need to redo that sacrifice again so that you can experience and enjoy the same level of immunity. Are you there? All right. So the reason why the sacrifices had to be cyclical and continuous is because they did not have the ability to satisfy God. Now, this is January, so most of you bought Christmas goat, bought Christmas ram. Please, what is the average cost of Christmas goat? Pastor Chooks, I know you, a goat laid down its life so that you could celebrate. What was the cost of that goat? Or you are not the one that is in that department? Okay, Pastor Chooks is on the high side. So he has people that take care of such issues. I'm talking about someone that can give us the current market price for goat right now. Huh? You know, I've not been to the market for a long time. Very long time. Okay, somebody's coming up here. I'm hearing 45,000. What? 60,000, depending on the size of the stomach. Now, okay. Let me ask you a question. If every time you lie, you need to bring a goat to consider 2023, how many goats would you have been required to make available? So if you study the book of Galatians, you will find a terminology called the curse of the law. Have you seen that? The curse of the law. You know what the curse of the law is? The requirement for sacrifices, for offenses. Even if you are a billionaire and you are offering one goat of 60,000 naira per lie, and maybe the one for fornication might be ram. The other day, we were sending somebody with bride price to go and pay for a lady in Botswana. It was 7 cows. 7 cows. How much does a cow cost? I didn't know that it's only in Nigeria that they price around bride price. If you try to price somewhere else, it's an insult. So when they say 7, they mean 7. So, are you there? So it means, according to Botswana culture, the cost of a man is 7 cows. So if the person commits murder and somebody dies, the number of cows you need to bring to atone for that error might be 7 cows. How much does 1 cow go for? You're already seeing that all of us will be in debt. None of us will be rich enough to cover the level of atonement that is needed in order for us to walk free of the wrath of God. None of us. So that is what we call the cost of the law. The cost of paying for your infringements against God. You and me don't have enough resources to pay for it. Exactly. All right, so Jesus is bringing a new kind of priesthood. And the new kind of priesthood that is bringing on the scene is what we call the priesthood of the living sacrifice. This priesthood is going to affect you and me. This new type of priesthood. Are you there? Okay, so. Then said he, Lo, I am come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second. It's because of the inadequacies of the sacrifices of the Old Testament that God had to send his son, and he gave his son a body so that he can offer himself as a sacrifice that he can accept. Do you still remember the parable of savory meat that I love? That savory meat is Jesus Christ. Because the sacrifices under the Old Testament did not have enough stature to satisfy God. Are you there? Now, so I want to draw your attention to some matters. Before we leave Hebrews chapter 10, I will still want us to read Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1, before we migrate. Are you still with me? Now, the reason why I'm going this way and showing you the broad concept of priesthood as it is practiced in the Levitical order is so that when we zero down and begin to establish how to raise a personal altar. Are you with me? You would have understood the concept of priesthood, and it will be easy for you to apply. It will be easy for you to practice it personally. And from experiential perspective, I will be able to suggest to you the kind of implication that you are going to derive by practicing priesthood in the art of establishing a personal altar. So when we finish talking about a personal altar, then we move to a community or a family altar. Then we move to a national altar. It sustains the same principles, but its application in each case might be just a little different. And when it goes beyond a personal altar, there are other terminologies we are going to include in describing it, like quorum. Why is it that on the day of Pentecost there had to be 120? In which other place do you find 120 people that are? Is there any other parallel that carries 120 in the Bible? Oh, for you it's no. You see, God is a God of patterns. He's a God of science. There's a pattern to the things he does. He doesn't do things one-off because he's prophetic. What he does in the Old Testament is pointing to something he will do in the New Testament. And so there are certain patterns that will be littered around what he does in the Old Testament so that when he begins to do it in the New, you can now say, oh, this is that. This is that. There are parallels in the Bible that will give you insight into what God is fulfilling. Are you there? Okay. So verse number 1, it says, for the law, having a shadow of things to come. The first thing about the law is that it is prophetic. Second thing you need to know is that it is not the very image of the things. And the sacrifices that were offered therein could not make such that came unto it perfect. Now, the reason why I came back here is to show you just the number 1 point that I raised. It is a shadow of good things. Not just shadow of things to come, but shadow of good things to come. So we are going to look at the Old Testament context, and I'm not so concerned about that. We will see what it points to. And we are going to take our education from the things that all the shadow of offerings, or the shadow of sacrifices point to, so that we can understand our position and the implication of those sacrifices within the context of the new covenant. Because that is such that is applicable to you and to me. Are you there? You know, we spoke about sacrifices yesterday, and I told you that a sacrifice is something that can be offered to a spirit being that a spirit being will be satisfied about. So if at this point I decide to ask you a question, what do you think that if you offer God, God will be satisfied about? Do you have an answer to that question? You know the answer to the question? Moses knew those things. Moses knew the things that God will accept. He knew the things that God will be satisfied about. And if we want to study priesthood, there's no way we can escape studying the life and the ministry of Moses. Do you still remember the Passover? The Passover in Egypt? Still remember it? Still remember what was about to happen? It was the angel of death that was about to visit Egypt. It was already concluded. God had given the decree, and the angel of death was mobilized. And then Moses now, because he has a relationship with God, went to consult God, and God gave him a word of wisdom. The word of wisdom that God gave Moses could not stop the decree that had gone forth about the angel of death visiting Egypt. But the word of wisdom that God gave to Moses was able to confuse the angel.